Dodge has consistently defied all known automotive logic. They built cars so dangerous that they had to actively warn people not to buy them. But that's not all. There are also many records, achievements, and shady things you'll see below. These are 100 facts about Dodge. The first electric sports car. The future has arrived for the brand, and it has done so with the 2025 Charger, which holds the title of being the first purely electric sports car built by the company. For many purists, this is considered a shame or even a waste, because the car's design is visually stunning, maintaining those aggressive lines we love so much, but without the characteristic roar of the combustion engine, the steel Dodge Model 30. To understand the greatness of this brand, we must go back to its beginnings with the Dodge Model 30, which was the first car built entirely by the Dodge brothers. This vehicle represented an unprecedented technological advance at the time, as it was the first car manufactured completely from steel. The Hellcat's valet mode. When you own a car with over 700 horsepower, handing the keys to a stranger to park it can be a recipe for disaster. For this reason, all Dodge Hellcat and Demon models come equipped with a valet mode that electronically limits engine power to just 300 horsepower, the best-selling vehicle in history. Although today we associate the brand with burning rubber and supercharged engines, the title of the best-selling Dodge of all time doesn't belong to a Challenger or a Charger, but to the humble Dodge Caravan. This minivan achieved the astonishing figure of over 14.6 million units sold throughout its history. The year the Viper wasn't a Dodge. There's a curious and somewhat confusing chapter in the history of the brand's supercar. For a brief period, Chrysler attempted to turn street and racing technology, better known as SRT, into its own independent high-performance brand, the origin of the Viper series name. In a rather ironic turn of events, the Paramount Television Network produced an action series called Viper in the 1990s. Legend has it that the writers were so pressed for time to deliver the script that they still didn't have a final name for the main car. The first 16-cylinder HEMI engine. Although today we associate the name HEMI with 8-cylinder engines in street cars, the first engine with this hemispherical combustion chamber technology was built in 1945 for much more military purposes. The Challenger based on a Mitsubishi. Not all moments in Dodge's history have been absolute glory. In 1978, in the midst of the energy crisis, the brand was forced to sell a car under the Challenger name that was nothing more than a Mitsubishi Sapporo with different badges. This disgrace of a supposed muscle car had an inline 4-cylinder engine that barely produced between 76 and 105 horsepower with front-wheel drive. The first American subcompact. Despite its current reputation for making enormous cars, Dodge pioneered the small car segment in the United States. The Dodge Magnum and its cargo capacity. The Dodge Magnum is remembered by many as the ultimate family transporter, a station wagon on steroids that combined the practicality of a long car with the power of a 6.1-liter HEMI engine. The Dodge Coronet and its band headlights. In 1957, the brand's engineers decided to go for a futuristic design for the Coronet that included quad headlights. However, they ran into a legal roadblock. This headlight configuration had not yet been approved in 3 states. The pickup truck that was sold without a roof. In the 1970s, simplicity was key for work vehicles, but Dodge took this to the extreme with the 1974 Ram Charger. In an attempt to cut costs as much as possible, the vehicle came standard with only one driver's seat, and even more incredibly, didn't include any kind of roof. The lost purpose of headlight covers. Headlight covers were a popular luxury feature in the 1960s and 70s, as they allowed for a sleek, continuous front-end design when the lights weren't in use. However, in 1978, Dodge decided this aesthetic no longer made technical sense and abandoned the idea with the Magnum, fitting permanent clear covers. The Hornet's Power Burst Mode. Even in its most modern and smaller models like the Hornet, the brand continues to find ways to give the driver a power boost. By holding down both paddle shifters on the steering wheel, a special mode is activated that grants an additional 30 horsepower for a short period. The Demon's ban for being too fast. The original 2018 Dodge Demon was so absurdly fast that the National Hot Rod Association decided to ban it from official quarter-mile competitions. The technical reason was that the car was capable of running a lap time under 10 seconds, and according to the rules, any vehicle that reaches that speed must have a full roll cage installed from the factory. The NASCAR safety car accident. In 1971, a Dodge Challenger was involved in one of the most dramatic incidents in NASCAR history, but not as a competitor. The safety car, driven by a local dealer named Eldon Palmer, lost control and crashed directly into the photographer's booth, injuring 29 people. The dissolution of the SRT division. In 2021, the Stellantis conglomerate decided to dissolve the Street and Racing Technology division as a separate entity, integrating its engineers into the company's global departments. The Easter egg in the Ram console. The brand's designers love to hide details for the most observant owners. In modern Ram trucks, if you lift the center console lid, you'll find a graphic etched into the plastic that shows the historical evolution of the brand's trucks. The alcohol injection in the Demon 170. The new Demon 170 is a mechanical beast that runs on E85 fuel, which is basically a blend with a high ethanol content. To celebrate this fact, Dodge engineers gave the Demon logo yellow eyes. This isn't just for aesthetics, but a direct reference to the color of corn, which is the main source from which the alcohol is extracted to make this high-performance fuel. The high-performance dual key system. Dodge is the only brand that has massively implemented a color-coded key system for its most powerful models. When you get a Hellcat, you receive a black key and a red key. The black one is for everyday use, limiting the power to make the car manageable in the city. The original name of the Dodge Dart. The Dodge Dart is a classic name in the industry, but it almost ended up being called something much less imposing. The original proposed name for the vehicle was Zip, the Neon SRT4 and its subwoofers. In the early 2000s, Dodge was trying to attract a young and rebellious audience with the Neon SRT4, but it faced stiff competition from Japanese all-wheel drive cars. To compensate for the lack of traction, someone in the design office came up with the idea of including a massive factory-installed subwoofer directly in the trunk. The dangerous, no-warranty HEMI Dart. In 1968, the brand built a car that was so extreme that they themselves were afraid people would drive it. The HEMI Dart was a street-legal drag racer with a 7-liter, 420-horsepower engine in a lightweight body. The logo shared by 3 brands. There was a period between 1980 and 1993 when the visual distinction between the Chrysler Group brands was almost non-existent. Dodge, Chrysler, and Plymouth all used the exact same star logo. The Dodge brothers' name dropped. During the first decades of the 20th century, the brand's cars were officially sold under the name Dodge Brothers. However, after Chrysler bought the company, they decided to drop the reference to the brothers. The reason was purely image-related. The new owners felt the original name made the brand sound like a small, family-run artisanal operation, when their goal was to project it as an industrial giant capable of competing globally. The noise-cancelling system in Rams. In an unexpected turn for a brand that loves the roar of engines, the new Ram trucks are equipped with state-of-the-art noise-cancelling technology. They use 4 internal speakers dedicated exclusively to emitting sound waves that cancel out external noise and engine vibrations. The millions of combinations of the Viper GTC. With the Viper GTC model, the brand decided to offer the most ambitious customization program in history. There were 24,000 color options for the stripes, 8,000 exterior colors, 16 different interiors, and multiple mechanical configurations. Mathematically, there were more than 25 million different ways to configure your Viper, which meant it was virtually impossible to find another person in the world with a car exactly like yours. The Ram TRX's fuel consumption. The Ram TRX is famous for many things, but fuel economy isn't one of them. Averaging 12 miles per gallon, it holds the title of having the second worst fuel efficiency in the world, surpassed only by the Bugatti Chiron, the strange 2-door, 3-row Dodge. Dodge has always had a special relationship with the Mexican market, selling models that never made it to the United States. One of the strangest cases is a version of the Dodge Durango that only had 2 doors but retained 3 rows of seats. The Challenger's fake air intakes. Although the Challenger is an engineering icon, not all of its details are functional. While the driver's side headlight brilliantly functions as a cold air intake for the engine, The similar details on the passenger side are completely fake. The Cummins Engine's Million-Mile Club. The partnership between Dodge and Cummins diesel engines has created one of the greatest durability legends in history. The soldier scammed by a dealership. Last year, the story of a US serviceman deployed overseas who bought a Dodge Demon 170 from a dealership in Mississippi went viral. After paying a $50,000 markup, he discovered on Facebook that the dealership had resold his same car to someone else for an even higher price. When the story reached Tim Kuniskis, the CEO of Dodge, he personally intervened to gift the soldier one of the few remaining Dodge vehicles, proving that the brotherhood of muscle cars still has honor: the Challenger's Mercedes chassis. During the era when Daimler and Chrysler were partners, some very interesting cross-pollination of engineering took place. The chassis on which the 2008 Challenger was built is essentially a hybrid, using components from the Mercedes-Benz E-Class and S-Class. This German engineering foundation is what gave the Challenger the stability and mechanical robustness that allowed it to remain relevant without major structural changes for over a decade. How to jump-start a Dodge without a battery in the key fob. Many owners of modern Dodge models panic when their smart key's battery dies, fearing they'll be stranded. However, engineers designed a physical backup system. Simply use the key itself to press the ignition button on the dashboard. The system features a short-range proximity sensor that detects the key's chip even without power, allowing you to start the engine and get out of trouble. The Viper's continuous design line. The third-generation Dodge Viper boasts an obsessive design detail that few notice. A physical line runs the entire length of the car's body, from front to back. Dodge was so committed to this continuity that they even stitched a matching line onto the leather steering wheel and painted the rear spoiler bracket so the visual path wouldn't be interrupted at any point, though the exact meaning of this line remains a mystery. The Demon's original name. Before the name Demon became synonymous with extreme power, the brand almost chose a much more endearing name for its budget car in the 1970s. The original name they had selected was Beaver. Luckily, they decided to change it to Demon at the last minute to give it a more rebellious feel, although this caused problems with religious groups of the time who didn't approve of driving a demon to church on Sundays. The 18-wheeled Bighorn trucks. There was a brief period between 1973 and 1975 when Dodge attempted to dominate the heavy-duty trucking world with its 18-wheeled Bighorn trucks. Only 261 units were ever made, of which fewer than 150 survive today. Most interestingly, the iconic Ram's head logo that now identifies all Ram trucks was originally created exclusively for this line of heavy-duty trucks. The end of the HEMI 5.8 engines. All good things must come to an end, and for Dodge, that moment will arrive in 2025. The brand has officially announced that it will cease production of the legendary HEMI 5.8 engines to comply with new emissions regulations and focus on electrification. It's a tough blow for enthusiasts, marking the end of one of the loudest and most exciting chapters in the history of American automotive engineering. The Challenger's strange side mirrors. If you've ever taken a close look at a modern Dodge Challenger, you might have noticed that its side mirrors seem a little out of place compared to the rest of the body. This isn't a design flaw or a budget constraint, but a direct homage to the mirrors of the original 1970 model. The designers worked so hard to replicate the classic silhouette that they sacrificed some modern aerodynamics to maintain that robust rectangular shape that gives the car its stalker-like look on the road. The Tomahawk 10 motorcycle. In 2003, Dodge decided that the Viper's V10 engine was so amazing that it shouldn't be limited to just cars. Thus, the Dodge Tomahawk was born. A concept motorcycle that was essentially a 500 horsepower engine with 2 wheels in the front and 2 in the back. Although some units were sold as works of art for over $500,000, the brand always maintained that it wasn't street legal, as its theoretical speed exceeded 600 kilometers per hour, technically making it a handlebar-mounted missile. Van racing in Japan. There's a subculture in Japan known as Dajiban that's obsessed exclusively with 1990s Dodge Ram vans. These enthusiasts don't use them for hauling cargo. Instead, they modify them with racing suspensions, boosted engines, and high-performance tires to compete on hill climbs. It's one of the strangest phenomena in the automotive world, where vehicles designed for heavy-duty work in the United States end up drifting on Japanese tracks with an agility no one would have thought possible. The Power Dollars discount program. In an aggressive marketing move that only Dodge would dare to pull off, the brand launched the Power Dollars program, which consisted of giving a direct discount of $10 for every horsepower the car you were buying had. This meant that if you bought a 717 horsepower Hellcat, you received an instant discount of $7,170. It was an ingenious way to reward customers for choosing the most powerful and loudest options in their catalog. Chrysler's purchase of Dodge. In 1928, the brand underwent one of its most dramatic changes when Walter Chrysler bought the company for $170 million. At the time, it was the largest business transaction in US history. Chrysler knew it needed Dodge's reputation for durability to compete against General Motors, and that union allowed the brand to survive the Great Depression and become the performance pillar we know today. The tragic death of the founders. The story of the Dodge brothers ended abruptly and tragically in 1920. Both brothers died just months apart during the Spanish flu pandemic. John died first, and it is said that Horace, devastated by the loss of his brother and business partner, lost the will to live and passed away shortly after. It is one of the great tragedies of the industry, as the brand was left without its masterminds just as they were at the height of their technological success. The separation of Ram and Dodge. For decades, Ram was simply the name of Dodge's line of trucks. But in 2009, the corporate decision was made to separate Ram into an independent brand. The goal was to allow Dodge to focus exclusively on sports and high-performance cars, while Ram concentrated on being the market leader in work trucks. Although they are now separate brands, for most people, a Ram will always be, at heart, a Dodge truck. The accidental origin of the TRX name. The Ram TRX pickup truck is the direct answer to the Ford Raptor, and while many believe the name comes from one dinosaur competing with another, the reality is that TRX was simply the internal acronym for a high-travel suspension project. However, the designers noticed the resemblance to a Tyrannosaurus Rex and decided to embrace the narrative, even placing Easter eggs under the hood depicting a T-Rex devouring a Raptor, the fastest naturally aspirated dragster. Dodge holds the record for building the world's fastest naturally aspirated production car with the Challenger SRT 392. This vehicle was specifically designed for those who prefer the immediate response of a large engine without turbos or superchargers, achieving quarter-mile times that put many European sports cars costing 3 times as much to shame. The invention of the column shifter. Before 1934, shifting gears in a car was a physically demanding and complicated task. Dodge revolutionized car interiors by introducing the column-mounted shifter, allowing for a flat floor and enabling 3 people to sit comfortably in the front. This innovation, which prioritized family comfort, became an industry standard for over 50 years. Cheap headlights borrowed from a BMW. The development of the first-generation Dodge Viper was an exercise in extreme cost-cutting to bring it to production. To avoid spending millions on designing custom headlights, engineers scoured other manufacturers' shelves and ended up using the same headlights as the BMW 3 Series of the time. It's a curious detail that an American supercar shared its headlights with a German luxury sedan simply to exist. The true meaning of Scat Pack. Today, the B on Wheels logo is synonymous with powerful engines, but the name Scat Pack originated in the 1960s as a reference to the phrase meaning, "get out of here fast." It was the name of an exclusive club for owners of the fastest Dodge models, and to become a member you had to prove your car could run the quarter mile in under 14 seconds, an impressive feat in 1968. The Demon's disclaimer. When you buy a Dodge Demon, the dealership makes you sign a multi-page legal document acknowledging that the car is extremely dangerous. The document specifies that you must not use the racing tires on rainy days because the car will instantly lose control, and that you are aware the vehicle's power can cause damage if not driven with extreme caution. It's probably the only car in the world that comes with a death warning contract included. The Shelby Omni, and the name, goes like hell. Carroll Shelby worked with Dodge in the 1980s to create a high-performance version of the small Dodge Omni. The project's internal name was GLH, short for Goes Like Hell. The car was so light and powerful for its size that it surprised everyone. becoming the first American hot hatch that could truly compete with the best in Europe. The photoshopped playground. In an advertising campaign for the Dodge Journey, the brand wanted to demonstrate that the vehicle was ideal for adventurous families. However, instead of taking the car to a real mountain, they used a photo of a playground and photoshopped the car onto it so obviously that it became an internet meme. It was a reminder that even the giants of Detroit have bad days in their marketing department. Massive success before even building a car. Before the first Dodge car rolled off the assembly line in 1914, the brothers' reputation was so strong that they already had over 22,000 prepaid orders. People trusted the Dodge brothers' engineering so much, they had manufactured almost all the parts for early Fords, that they were willing to buy a car they hadn't even seen yet. The legend of Detroit's Black Ghost. In the 1970s, a black Dodge Challenger with a crocodile skin vinyl roof would appear out of nowhere at Detroit's most famous street races, beat everyone, and then vanish without a trace for months. It became known as the Black Ghost. Decades later, it was discovered that the owner was a police officer named Godfrey Qualls, who used his high-performance car to illegally rule the streets while serving the law by day. His car was recently auctioned for over $1 million. The trunk key lock system. In modern Charger and Challenger models, there's a very clever safety feature to prevent you from getting locked out of your car. If you accidentally leave your keys in the trunk and close it, the car will detect the chip signal and the trunk will automatically open 3 times in a row to alert you. It's a simple but effective measure that has saved thousands of owners from having to call a locksmith. The failure of the car designed for women. In 1955, the brand launched the Dodge La Femme, a pink and white car that came with a matching parasol, handbag and makeup kit. The car was a complete sales flop because Dodge mistakenly assumed that women wanted a fashion accessory rather than a good car. It turned out that female drivers preferred the standard models with more powerful engines to a car that looked like a dollhouse on wheels. The advertising campaign for swingers. In the 1970s, Dodge launched a Dart model called the Swinger. What the executives didn't know was that the term swinger was beginning to be used to describe a lifestyle of partner swapping. Billboards reading "Get in a Swinger" caused a huge stir, and although it was a grammatical error, car sales increased thanks to the free and somewhat cheeky publicity generated by the confusion. The Viper's dangerous snake bite. The original Viper was notorious for having no electronic driver aids, no traction control, and no anti-lock brakes. This gave it a dangerous reputation known as the snake bite. If you weren't a skilled driver and accelerated too hard coming out of a corner, the car would spin violently on its own axis. It was a car that demanded absolute respect and didn't forgive human error. The Dodge brothers' origins in bicycle manufacturing. Long before making parts for Ford or their own cars, John and Horace Dodge began their industrial empire manufacturing bicycles. Their company was called the Evans and Dodge Bicycle Company, and there they invented a revolutionary dust-resistant ball bearing. The money and mechanical expertise they gained from bicycles financed their entry into the automotive world. The final end of manual transmissions. Dodge was one of the last brands to offer a manual gearbox in a 700-plus horsepower car, but they recently announced that for the remaining Hellcat models, the manual option is gone for good. The reason is that modern 8-speed automatic transmissions are now so fast and efficient that a manual gearbox can't handle the engine's massive torque without constantly breaking down. The Charger prototype that had no name. When the original Charger was being designed, the engineers were so focused on performance that the first working prototype didn't have an official name. They simply called it the 00 because it was the first test car. When they finally decided to call it the Charger, they had to convince the board of directors that the name didn't sound too aggressive to conservative buyers. The accident statistics of Ram owners. According to various studies by insurance companies in the United States, drivers of Ram 25,000 trucks are statistically more likely to be involved in traffic incidents and receive speeding tickets than owners of any other vehicle. It's a curious fact that perhaps reflects the strong and somewhat impatient personality of those who choose these heavy-duty workhorses. The secret development of the Viper. The original team that designed the Viper worked in a separate shop from Chrysler's headquarters, so the accountants wouldn't shut down the project. They called themselves Team Viper, and operated like a guerrilla unit within the company, using parts from other cars and secretly working overtime to prove that Chrysler could still build something exciting. The omission of production number 666. Because the car's name is Demon, Dodge decided, out of respect for religious sensitivities and to avoid unnecessary controversy, to skip serial number 666 in the production of its vehicles. No Dodge Demon has that number stamped on its chassis plate, going directly from 665 to 667. The creation of the world's first minivan. Although the honor is often disputed, the 1984 Dodge Caravan was the one that truly popularized the minivan concept. Lee Iacocca, who had been fired from Ford for proposing a small family car, took the idea to Dodge and saved the company from bankruptcy with this invention that allowed the whole family to travel with the comfort of a sedan, but the space of a van. The secret drawing of the TRX eating a raptor. If you open the hood of a Ram TRX and look at the plastic engine cover, you'll see a relief of a Tyrannosaurus Rex with a velociraptor in its jaws. It's one of the funniest direct attacks from one brand to another in recent history, making it clear that Dodge didn't just want to compete with Ford, but wanted to devour its legacy in the high-performance truck segment. The ancient origin of the Fratzog logo. The strange triangular logo that Dodge used in the 1960s and 70s is called the Fratzog. The curious thing is that the name doesn't mean anything. It was a word invented by a designer in a meeting because he needed to name the drawing and couldn't think of anything better. The word stuck, and today it's one of the most iconic symbols of the muscle car era. The truth about modern HEMI engines. Although Dodge markets its current engines as HEMI, technically they no longer have a perfectly hemispherical combustion chamber, like the original engines from the 1960s. Engineers had to modify the shape to improve efficiency and reduce emissions, but they decided to keep the HEMI name because of its enormous nostalgic and marketing value. The original Viper without handles or windows. The first Dodge Viper was so radical that it didn't have exterior door handles or glass side windows. If you wanted to close the car, you had to use zippered plastic curtains. It was a design focused 100% on the driving experience, eliminating any unnecessary weight or comfort that could distract the driver. The secret tattoo in the Demon 170 logo. On the new Dodge Demon 170, the Demon logo on the fender has a small hidden detail. A mark on the neck that looks like a tattoo of 170. It's a reference to the alcohol test of E85 fuel, which is what allows the car to reach its impressive 1,025 horsepower. How Dodge changed the rules of aerodynamics in NASCAR. In 1969, the Dodge Charger Daytona was the first car in NASCAR history to break the 200 mph barrier. Its spoiler was so tall not for aesthetics, but to allow the trunk lid to open, and its nose was so long that the car was almost impossible to drive on normal streets because it would hit every bump. The cup holders inside the Challenger's engine. Dodge engineers knew that owners of these cars would spend a lot of time working under the hood. That's why, in the design of the modern Challenger's engine bay, there are small circular indentations in the plastic that are the exact size of a soda can or water bottle, functioning as integrated cup holders for the mechanic. The Dodge Demon's $1 seat. To emphasize that the Demon was a street-legal race car, Dodge sold it as standard with only one seat. However, they knew people would want passengers, so they offered a front passenger seat and a rear seat as factory options that cost exactly $1 each. It was a way of mocking regulations while maintaining their radical car image. The invention of the word reliability. The most important fact about Dodge history is that they literally invented the word reliability in 1914. Before Dodge used it in their advertising campaigns to describe their steel cars, the word didn't exist in the English dictionary. It was a term created by their marketing department to convince the public that their machines would never let them down, a promise the brand has tried to uphold for over a century of automotive history.